Hi there, and welcome to the nitty-gritty PSLS follow-up guide for handlers. Reasons to watch this video. You are registered for handler training, you have completed handler training, and you have an event that requires an urgent response and you are unable to reach the PSLS team. Please note that I will be using a test page, so what you see in this video might be slightly different to what you actually see when you log into your computer. In this video, I am going to pass on some sweet tips provided to me by other handlers at Providence Healthcare, and we'll walk through the main points of completing a PSLS report. Tip number 1. Because you are probably going to be someone who receives a ton of emails a day, I recommend setting up protected PSLS follow-up time in your calendar. And if you hear that something was reported, start the fact-finding as soon as possible. The last thing you want to deal with is a bunch of overdue PSLSs. Figure out how to build managing patient safety events into your workflow. If you are trying to log in and you've forgotten your password or you are locked out, at the login page, you will see this. Select the Forgot Your Password link and follow the prompts. You will need your email address open during this process. Okay, let's log in. The status buckets here on this side indicate the stage of review. The events you see in the buckets may be assigned to you or they might be assigned to other handlers. Did you know that there are 3 options to find the events assigned to you? Well, check this out. You can either select the holding area bucket, and then when you go in there, the event handler is indicated on the left-hand side of the column. You could either select the to-do list tab, and then select the event ID once you're in there. The to-do list is great because it also indicates if you have any actions assigned to you. That one or that one. By the way, if you click the events page, that is like your home page to get to this main page here. The other third option is to select the quick view of My Open Events. I love this tab as it's a great way to see and triage events for you to follow up on. What some handlers do is once they get into their office in the morning, they quickly log on to PSLS, make sure to save it as a bookmark, and then they click on this link. It's a great quick 2-minute check-in to triage things. So let's open up an event. When you open up an event, you're going to notice a few things. You'll note information such as the event ID or the PSLS ID here. You'll also note the type of event. So this is a patient safety event. Sometimes it might say hazard or safety hazard. And you'll also see the category of the problem. In this example, it seems to be a fall. Along the left-hand side here, there are some tabs. Orange indicates where there is information. The tabs are specific to the event category. So we are in the name and reference tab, and even before we start reviewing and reading the event description, the first step is to move the event from the in holding area into being reviewed, and then we hit save. This is your signal to your colleagues that you have looked at this event, and you make that signal. It is obvious here. I have come into it. As we go through this form, look out for the red star. This indicates mandatory fields that need to be completed and reviewed by you. All right, let's start reviewing the rest of the tabs. We'll go from top to bottom. Date and times let you know when the event was reported, when it was discovered, and when the event occurred. If you find out that the time that it occurred is actually different, for example, it didn't happen at 7:30, but it actually happened at 9:30, go ahead and make that change. We want you to have the most accurate information put into your PSLS data. Hit save and you can see it's made that change. The locations and programs, this indicates where the event was discovered and where it originated. You can see here that this red star is blank. So I will eventually fill this in once I find out a bit more information. If you're unsure of why it's blank or what is this even asking you for, or any of these fields, for example, what do they want? Click the question mark. I use this all the time and I find it incredibly helpful. The description of the event will be found in the Event Overview tab. This is the problem, as in what happened. And this is always the tip of the iceberg. Tip number 3, or tip number 2, you will sometimes read events with a bias, judgment, and assumptions. Acknowledge this and put them aside. Your job is to better understand why things happened, learn and understand what factors in the environment either contributed or influenced a patient safety incident to occur. Once you have reviewed the description that is written in here, check to see if these categories here are accurate. The categories are a categorical description of the narrative that is in here. Essentially, these categories are a one-line description of what happened that sums up the event description. If they don't match, change the categories. Go ahead and have a look. Whatever you choose on a top category predetermines what's going to come underneath. Some events will be simple. Others may indicate a bunch of problems. Do your best to categorize and avoid just choosing other. The next section is assessing the impact to the patient. And this is within your scope to adjust in terms of the degree of harm. There are links also to the degree of harm in case you're unsure of how to categorize them. Remember to indicate in the follow-up section as to why the degree of harm is also being adjusted, should you have done that. Contributing factors indicate any factors that may have contributed to the event. The more you learn, you can then come and click whatever one best describes the contributing factor. Event details will provide more information if specific reporter forms, such as falls or laboratory event forms, were used by the reporter. Same with equipment details as well. Medication tab will include the problem, incorrect patient, incorrect dose, that type of information, as well as the medication that was involved in the event. People involved. Here you will find the patient's name and the MRN. You'll also have the reporter's name in here, unless they chose to remain anonymous. In the Notifications tab, reporters may indicate who else was notified of the event, such as it looks like this person notified the clinical nurse leader. You can also grant access or grant people access to this report. So for example, you want one of your leaders to be aware of it, you can start typing in their name in here. You can put in their last name or you can put in their designation as well. I highly recommend typing people's names or designations into these boxes rather than clicking on this list. You then have a massive long list of people to go through. Along the way, if you make any changes, keep hitting save. Your main documentation tab is in the follow-up section. If the event is a no harm event, ensure that the patient was in fact not harmed. Complete mandatory fields in this form. Check in with the reporter and ask if there is additional info that they want to share, and then formally close the event off. Events where there is harm, for example, in this one report that we're looking at, there's going to be a little bit more information it's going to ask you, and it is mandatory information. Events, again, where there is harm, or events where maybe there is no harm, but you have identified a process or system issue, these events may require more thoughtful analysis. For these type of events or incidents, I want to know what you learnt during your incident analysis. Good things that happened, any gaps or barriers, if standards were met, or maybe we didn't even establish any standards. Things about the environment, any constraints as well, etc. Based on what you've learnt, we then need you to identify what you are going to do with this new information. And this is in the actions taken after review section. You can check as many check marks as you want, or you can type things into here as well. You can also see here a last mandatory thing is handler manager gave feedback to the reporter. If you say yes, it's going to ask you how did you do it. If you say no, it's going to ask you reason for not giving feedback back. If you need to assign an action to another area for notification for review, say for example you want pharmacy to help you out with a PSLS event, you can do that through the Actions Taken and Planned tab. Let's create a new action. Select Create a New Action, and then we start typing in the type and the subtype. As you can see, when I've chosen one thing, it's triggered a lot of other questions to come in. You then put in the description for the action, the due date, we generally say in about a couple of weeks' time from the date that you open this event. And again, you then assign somebody who is going to respond to this. Again, instead of clicking this arrow down box, I highly recommend start typing in the person's last name or their designation. As you can see, the more information I kind of put in, it narrows down the scope, and then I can choose that person. Once you hit Submit Action, the person will get an email. Once they have completed their review, they will send you an email that this has been done. I love this feature as it's a great way to learn from one another and then share that information with your staff. It's a great way to break down negative assumptions about another area. For example, pharmacy is always sending up the wrong drug. Stuff happens, and people don't intend to do this. Learn why it happened and what can be done differently. Once you've completed the follow-up section, you can move the event into final approval. Here's how we do this. We go into name and reference. We change the status after save from being reviewed to finally approved. The system will alert you to any mandatory questions you might have missed. By the way, you don't have to document all your information in one setting. While the event is in being reviewed, you can enter into the system as many times as you need to. One final message for you all. Remember that we are using a learning system, not a reporting system. So I highly encourage you to share the learning not only with your staff, but also share any emerging patterns or issues with your leaders and your program quality and safety committee in order to assign and prioritize quality improvement ideas. For more information on this, please refer to our patient safety management policy. It clearly sets out roles and expectations when it comes to patient safety management. Oh, and one more thing. I promise that using this system will get better and easier. Remember, we are all human and we will all make mistakes. Support those involved, use a true just lens to find out what is needed to make things better, what can help ensure this happens, and go forth and make it happen. Thank you.